Modern medicine has reached a peak of technical brilliance. We have mapped the genome and developed surgical tools operating with microscopic precision. Yet, at this same peak of progress, global health is in a state of rapid decline. Since 1990, the number of adults living with diabetes has quadrupled, and chronic illnesses now account for the vast majority of hospital admissions. This creates a glaring contradiction. If our medical technology is more advanced than ever, we have to ask why our populations are becoming sicker, more dependent, and increasingly prone to psychological crisis. Looking at the data, this crisis follows a distinct pattern, one where chronic illness generates a predictable long-term market. This pattern begins in the supermarket aisle. The modern supply chain has largely replaced raw, whole ingredients with ultra-processed products, engineered for infinite shelf life and high-speed production. Understanding this shift requires a look at two concepts, halal and tayyib. While halal refers to what is technically permissible, tayyib describes what is pure, natural, and wholesome for the human body. A hormone-injected, factory-farmed product might meet the technical requirements of halal. However, because it lacks natural fiber and is stripped of micronutrients, it falls outside the divine standard of tayyib. These are no longer foods in the traditional sense. They are engineered commodities designed to interact with our biology in a way that encourages continuous, addictive consumption. To maintain this scale, the industry moved away from natural agriculture toward mass chemical processing and artificial preservation. This environment introduced endocrine-disrupting chemicals, or EDCs. These synthetic compounds, including BPA and forever chemicals like PFAS, leach from packaging into the food itself, where they begin to interfere with our internal hormonal signaling. The biological data highlights the impact of these chemicals. Between 1999 and 2016, average male testosterone levels saw a 25% drop, a trend that is consistent across all age groups. This hormonal shift is linked to a decline in physical vitality and drive. It effectively reshapes the biological temperament of the population. By disrupting our natural biology, our fitra, the industry creates a population that is physically and mentally less capable of resisting the consumer cycle. This biological hijacking extends to the gut. Ultra-processed diets starve our microbiome of the fiber it needs to thrive. When these bacteria die, the protective mucosal lining of the intestine begins to degrade. Because the gut is responsible for producing the majority of our serotonin and GABA, this physical damage directly impacts our mood and cognitive function. Global data reflects this internal damage. In the first year of the pandemic alone, anxiety and depression rates increased by 25%. These products lead to chronic conditions, which the pharmaceutical industry manages with lifelong subscriptions. Simple, natural dietary changes would remove the need for many of these long-term medications, threatening the stability of this revenue cycle. Within this system, a person's chronic illness is not a failure of the model, it is the recurring revenue that sustains it. To prevent rebellion against this system, the matrix relies on the fear of scarcity, the idea that the world simply doesn't have enough to support us all. The math suggests otherwise. Current global agricultural capacity can feed 10 billion people. Despite this, hundreds of millions remain undernourished, a result of distribution failure rather than an actual lack of food. Leading economists like Joseph Stiglitz have pointed out that hunger is a consequence of policy and capitalist hoarding. In fact, roughly 1 billion tons of food are wasted every year, while the scarcity narrative is used to justify greed. This artificial scarcity pushes humanity into a state of survivalism, moving us away from our natural capacity for compassion and charity. Breaking out of this matrix requires a return to a fundamental divine tool, fasting, or SOM. Science now confirms that fasting triggers autophagy. This is a process where the body cleanses its own selves, identifying and breaking down the chemical remnants and toxins accumulated from processed foods. Beyond the biological reset, fasting rebuilds taqwa, the internal discipline required to say no to immediate impulses. This builds the willpower necessary to reject the addictions pushed by the consumer system. Returning to a pure tayyib diet and practicing regular fasting breaks the cycle of physical and psychological dependency. It is the path to reclaiming our health and our natural state of existence.